Every war has its silent strategists, but it also demands its frontline warriors. In the decade-long catastrophic collapse of the Jolie-Pitt dynasty, the world carefully watched how the eldest son, Maddox, deployed the weapon of absolute, icy detachment to systematically erase his father from his life. But as the smoke of Hollywood's most toxic divorce begins to clear, global attention has shifted to the second eldest brother, a young man whose response to family trauma was not a quiet retreat, but a roaring, unfiltered explosion. Born in the vibrant but chaotic streets of Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, and dropped straight into the blinding global media circus of Los Angeles, Pax Thien Jolie-Pitt has lived a life defined by extreme psychological contrasts. While his older brother chose intellectual distance, Pax chose a path of raw, defensive defiance. Today, we pull back the curtain on the untold journey of Pax Thien, the fierce, hyper-vigilant protector of the Jolie-Pitt empire, who became the definitive voice of his family's hidden pain and permanently shattered the carefully crafted public relations veneer of Brad Pitt. To truly understand the fierce fire and protective instinct that drives Pax Thien today, one must trace his story back to its incredibly humble beginnings in post-war Southeast Asia. Born in November 2003, he was originally named Pham Quang Sang. Deserted shortly after his birth due to severe hardship, he spent the first 3.5 years of his life in a crowded, underfunded orphanage facing a highly uncertain future. In institutions like these, children quickly learn a primal survival instinct. They learn to read the room, to guard their emotions, and to understand that security is a fragile concept. Then, in 2007, fate arrived in the form of Angelina Jolie. Already a mother to Maddox and Zahara, Jolie traveled to Vietnam to expand her global family. When she visited the orphanage, most of the young children were completely overwhelmed by the sudden influx of foreign visitors and flashing cameras. Pax, then a toddler, initially hid behind a heavy wooden doorway, staring at the Hollywood megastar with a mixture of intense caution and sharp curiosity. That raw, independent, and unfiltered spirit immediately captivated Jolie. She finalized the adoption, renaming him Pax Thien, a powerful poetic combination of the Latin word for peace and the Vietnamese word for heaven. Overnight, the quiet toddler from Ho Chi Minh City was thrust into the absolute pinnacle of Western celebrity culture. The psychological shock of this transition cannot be overstated. He was given everything money could buy, from private jets to luxury estates, but he was also forced to pay the highest price a child can endure: the total, permanent loss of personal privacy. Growing up in the shadow of an older brother who was widely considered the golden standard of the family created a unique psychological environment for Pax. Maddox was Angelina's original catalyst, the calm, structural leader who handled the spotlight with a practiced, cool detachment. Pax, by nature, was raw energy, highly emotional, introverted, and fiercely protective of his personal boundaries. For years, American paparazzi captured images of a young Pax Thien actively shielding his face from the lenses, glaring at the cameras with open hostility, or holding his mother's hand like a tiny, fierce bodyguard. He refused to smile on command. He treated the media not as an annoyance, but as an active threat to his sanctuary. As the family grew to 6 children, Pax naturally stepped into the role of the fierce protector, forming an unbreakable bond with his younger siblings, especially his sister Zahara and the younger twins, Knox and Vivienne, who looked up to him for defense. The turning point that permanently altered the trajectory of his life occurred on that infamous private jet flight in September 2016, while Maddox was the one who physically stepped, enduring the initial confrontation with an intoxicated Brad Pitt. The emotional aftershocks tore through Pax with equal violence. At just 12 years old, he watched his mother and his younger siblings suffer through the immediate, chaotic fallout of a broken home. He watched his sanctuary turn into a fortress under siege. In the years that followed, as Brad Pitt's high-priced public relations team worked tirelessly to rebuild the actor's image as a reformed, sober, and longing father, Pax's internal resentment continued to build. He watched the American media celebrate his father's Hollywood comeback and Oscar wins, while his family remained locked in an agonizing, endless custody war behind closed doors. To Pax, the public, narrative was an absolute lie that completely invalidated his family's genuine pain. The volcano finally erupted on Father's Day. Through a private Instagram account that was later verified by global news syndicates, Pax Thien unleashed a scathing, unfiltered attack that permanently dismantled Brad Pitt's public redemption arc. Over an image of Pitt accepting an Academy Award, a teenage Pax wrote words that would echo across the internet for years. He called his adoptive father a world-class asshole and a despicable person who proved his cruelty time and time again. He accused Pitt of having no empathy toward his 4 youngest siblings, claiming they trembled in fear whenever he was in the room. He concluded with a devastating statement, asserting that Pitt had turned the lives of those closest to him into a constant hell, promising that the truth would eventually come to light. This was not a calculated legal brief drafted by a corporate attorney. This was the visceral, explosive cry of a middle child who refused to let his family's reality be erased by Hollywood glamour. By choosing a public, frontal assault, Pax Thien willingly absorbed the immense media backlash. He became the lightning rod, effectively serving as a physical shield for his younger siblings who were too young or legally restricted from speaking out. While critics accused Pax of being vindictive, the public recognized the immense courage it took for a young man to stand up against one of the most powerful, protected elite figures in show business. Pax did not care about protecting his own Hollywood prospects or vanity projects. His only objective was to validate the trauma his family endured and ensure that his mother never had to walk through the wolves alone again. As he transitioned into legal adulthood, Pax, like Maddox, completely rejected the traditional path of a Hollywood nepotism baby looking for easy fame. He did not seek out reality television contracts, influencer brand deals, or red carpet validation. Instead, he quietly integrated himself into Angelina's professional empire as her ultimate creative collaborator, channeling his intense, focused energy into behind-the-scenes filmmaking and digital art. Pax served as a dedicated set photographer and assistant director on major cinematic productions, including First They Killed My Father and the recent drama Without Blood. Crew members have frequently noted his relentless work ethic, his quiet, zero-ego demeanor, and his willingness to carry heavy equipment in the heat. He found solace in the gritty, exhausting reality of production, preferring the hard work of a crew member over the shallow luxury of celebrity culture. Today, Pax Thien Jolie-Pitt has matured into a resilient, deeply loyal man who lives entirely on his own terms. He has successfully navigated the immense trauma of a historic family collapse by refusing to be a silent victim. Watch any recent real-world footage. When Angelina exits a vehicle, it is Pax who extends a hand first, his eyes scanning the crowd. When the cameras get too close, it is Pax who subtly positions his shoulders to block the line of sight. While his brother Maddox built a fortress of intellectual silence, Pax built a wall of fierce, protective action. Together, the 2 eldest sons have formed an impenetrable pincer movement against the past, ensuring that their younger siblings can grow up in a genuine sanctuary. From the quiet orphanages of Vietnam to the chaotic battlegrounds of Hollywood, Pax Thien has proven that true peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the courage to stand up, speak the truth, and protect the people you love with your entire life.